Hello and welcome to the Future of Dogs podcast, a place for the whole dog world to come together and ask the big why and what if questions that will shape the dogs of the future. Join me, Hannah Malloy, dog behaviourist and body language expert, as we chat to some of the world's most groundbreaking professionals intent on enriching and evolving the future for dogs. This series is sponsored by Amplified Behaviour, my online video school where you can find quality dog behaviour and training advice at a fraction of the price, because I believe everyone should be able to afford the knowledge that they need to give their dogs the best life possible. Let's jump in to the next episode. Welcome back to another passionate chat with some of the world's leading experts in the world of dogs. Series 2 is a responsible dog ownership special, and we are jumping in with both feet today. We're going to splash around in the topic of dog education until we're fully drenched and satisfied with the solutions that we come up with. And we are joined today by a double bill of beauty and wisdom. Don't worry, ladies, you both have plenty of both. It is my pleasure to introduce you to two incredibly talented leaders in the field of dog education, here to improve the future of dogs. We have Justine Schuurmans, come on, points for that one, and Kim Brophey. This is where I need a little button that goes whoop. It is so great to have you both with us today, ladies. I'm just going to drop your bios because they are outstanding. So Justine is the founder of The Family Dog and the creator of the Dial Method, which is a groundbreaking system that shifts the focus of dog training from the dog to the human. She's a former TV producer turned certified dog trainer, and she's on a mission to make dog training make more sense. She has spent the last 20 years turning the best dog behaviour information into easy, effective and fun ways to truly enjoy living life with dogs. Through her work as an author, an international speaker and a viral video producer, Justine empowers dog professionals and dog lovers everywhere with a blueprint for creating safe and joyful relationships with their dogs. Justine also works with me in Parliament, and she co-leads the education arm of the Responsible Dog Ownership Umbrella campaign with the all-party parliamentary group for dog welfare. And she's renowned for her dog bite awareness campaign, Stop the 77, in the States too. It's so good to see you, Justine.
Lovely to be here.
Thank you. And Kim, you have also the most amazing bio. I'm surrounded by incredibly intelligent women. So Kim is an applied ethologist. I'd love you to unpack that term for me a bit later. Kim is an applied ethologist and accomplished behaviour consultant and trainer. And Kim's been working with dogs and their families for over 25 years. Kim's commitment to family dog mediation has been recognised internationally. She was awarded the APDT Outstanding Trainer of the Year in 2009 and the Best Dog Trainer in WNC 8 years in a row. Come on, Kim. She is a member of the International Society for Applied Ethology and the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. And she's a certified member and a board member in the past for the International Association of Animal Behaviour Consultants, as well as the Asheville Humane Society. Now, Kim has created something called the LEGS model of integrated canine science, and it's been endorsed by prominent canine scientists such as Raymond Coppinger, and it's been embraced by reputable academics and dog trainers all over the world. She has this market-disrupting concept called LEGS, L-E-G-S, and it's Applied Ethology Family Dog Mediation. And this course is the flagship of a rapidly growing worldwide initiative that's leading the charge in setting a new direction for the pet industry and a culture of welfare-first understanding of pet dog behaviour. From the Family Dog Mediation Centre to the Legs in Motion conference, from her dog key genetic heritage testing software to the thousands of active family dog mediation student community members collaborating in this functional professional ecosystem, Kim's work really is a meaningful contribution to the advancement of the pet dog industry. She has done amazing things. She's written an incredible book called Meet Your Dog. She's been on TED and did a really cool TED Talk. She has been part of the Beyond the Operant Collaborative, the Dog's Truth documentary, and numerous public speaking venues and institutions and conferences around the world. So it is an absolute honour to have Kim with us today. Wow, ladies, what a profound set of legacies and learning that we've got at this table. Is quite mind-blowing, really. You arguably deserve an episode each, And I want to give you plenty of time to passion talk about education. But I also know, because I know one of you at least a little bit better than the other at the moment, that you work closely together, don't you? And recently, even more intentionally, I believe. So it just seemed right to have you both jump into this conversation together. So thank you for being here.
So excited.
So exciting. So where should we start? It's a huge topic, isn't it? Dog education. We always ask our guests what their big what if question is. If you could change the future of dogs with one what if, what would that be for you? So I wonder if we can start there and hear your individual what ifs and where that what if was born for you, if that's okay. Should we start? Justine, do you want to kick us off?
Oh gosh, it's like someone gives you the three wishes from the genie and you have to pick one, and there's so many, and it would be so amazing to have that what if come true. So I want to be very delicate and intentional with my answer, and I think the one that captures or has the biggest tentacles that can reach the most spaces is if people could truly see and understand their dogs. Because I think when you really understand who your dog is, just by nature, you will change the way you act, respond, live with them.
That's amazing. And where did that come from for you, Justine? Can you give us like a little bit of background as to where that was born? Why is that your biggest and most passionate what if?
Well, I think back in the day when I first started training, that was not a conversation anyone was having. We were taught to train dogs to do certain things. I mean, I taught so many basic obedience classes, and we didn't really pay attention to anything that the dog had to say. That wasn't important. It was more important for us to assert our will over the dog and make sure that they're doing the stuff that we wanted them to do in the house and make life more convenient for people. Do you know, I've got a bit of a kind of a thing in my throat actually saying that.
Oh,
actually makes me feel really quite sad, like to think that was part of that.
And not that long ago either.
It really wasn't that long ago.
And it wasn't just for you either, Justine.
No.
So I feel you.
It feels really sad. But I guess I didn't really think too much about it. It's the culture that we've been brought up in, and that's just the way it was. And then, you know, I think the tide like started to turn a little bit the first time I heard Suzanne Clothier speak. And that was many moons ago. I mean, that's probably like 15 plus years ago. And she was all about relationship-centered training. And once you see that, it's really hard to unsee it. And so that sort of kicked the door open. And then massive props to my bestie here, Kim, when I went to her conference probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, she really started to pull apart and explain from a scientific angle why these things that we know to be true, that we really do need to have a relationship with our dog to be able to live with them in a functional, respectful, loving way. It's all grounded in science. And so to hear her say with her genius brain, all of this stuff that I was organically feeling was just, you know, it underscored the point for me that, yeah, we've got to change some stuff. It's really on us to start reworking the way that the public perceives their dogs and really to once they understand them again, you cannot unsee it. It's like the toothpaste is out the tube. Now what are you going to do about it?
Big. That's amazing. Thank you, Justine. And how about for you, Kim? What's your what if and where did it come from?
You know, it's interesting because, like, I think so many of us share the story you've had, Justine, and you too, Hannah. I think so many of us in the industry, and that's definitely the most common feedback we get about the information in the course and, you know, everything about legs, have been feeling like intuitively, right? Like we're experiencing this, we know it to be true. And then, but it just wasn't something we publicly talked about. We were like, stay in your lane, train dogs, right? That's what we were told to do. So, for me, when I started really putting the pieces together and seeing that puzzle emerge, seeing dogs as who they really are and understanding in that way, then I became absolutely struck with the idea that this information needed to get out there to a wider audience, that we had to really understand. So sharing that same kind of what if with you, Justine, understand our dogs, but then further revere them and celebrate them for who they are, rather than what we've been doing is actually to suppress and minimize and restrict their expression of their dogness and their natures. And we've been told that's just what you have to do with a pet dog to make sure they're obedient and under control and all this. And it's kind of been so insidiously slow to develop that our culture has become more restrictive. They're more captive. They've lost so much of their freedom in the last few decades, even. And we've normalized some really weird pet keeping practices. And then when the dogs have struggles with those common pet keeping practices, it's like, well, you just need more training or maybe medication, or, so we're treating dogs like they're abnormal when they're actually having really natural responses to really unnatural conditions. So what I really hope is that we learn to celebrate them and then fully shoulder our responsibility in meeting their needs for the animals they are first, before we go right to this bag of tricks that helps us manipulate and control their behavior with good intentions. It's just something that's just evolved in the last, like, I'd say 30, 40 years. And then all of a sudden we're turning around and looking at it and like, how did this happen? How do we end up here with our dogs?
It's outstanding. And it's bonkers in some ways when you think about it, isn't it? That we've had to get to the point where we need to point out that dogs have an opinion. Like, that's where we're at. It's like, do you know your dog has an opinion? Like, your dog has thoughts about what's going on for it in this environment. And I mean, I know when I used to work for a major UK rescue centre, and I came out of there just needing to teach about dog body language, because I was like, this is the first place to start. Like, you guys can't see what he's saying. Like, we're not taught that. It's not a culturally taught thing. And I know the three of us all have like a huge passion for the power of education there. And when I first started my classes in Birmingham, I always did them outside, because I was like, a school hall is the weirdest place to train a dog, if you ask me, unless you're going to go on to, competitive obedience and shows and things, and you need to train inside. I think we should be outside. And I always called myself a bond over obedience trainer, and people were like, what's that? And I was like, well, it's about the bond more than the obedience. I want you to be focusing on the bond you have with your dog and not how well it behaves. Obviously, obedience is important. We need our dogs to not, run across roads and hurt themselves and other people. Like, that's super important. But yeah, it just seemed crazy for those of us who know and love dogs that we're having to point that out, that, guys, you know what? The dog has an opportunity to change its environment by talking to you, if you'll let it. And that is kind of on us, isn't it, to grant the space for it to have an opinion in the first place.
Yeah.
And it seems so obvious when it's a human to human relationship that humans would have opinions about things, and we would give them space to voice those opinions and maybe even accommodate those opinions. And if you were the person that says, oh, this is my wife, she doesn't have any opinions, you wouldn't be married for very long. That's just the reality. And I'm not saying that dogs are people, but it's not difficult really for us to see how absurd it is when we line up, those two things back to back. It's ridiculous, actually. But there are so many people that still are surprised by what you're saying, that they have opinions, thoughts, feelings. It's shocking.
And yet they would say that they know that. Like, of course I care about my dog's opinion. Like, I want him to enjoy his food mostly, as long as it's, the right price and like convenient for me to buy and to serve. Like, they want their dog to enjoy life. Most of the people that I've asked, you go to any dog show and go around with Vox Pop and say, what's responsible dog ownership? All of the people that I've asked say, oh, a happy dog. And I'm like, wow, like, that's top of the pops, is they want their dog to be happy.
I think people don't know what that means, though, right? Like, because this whole idea of like, people are so scared of anthropomorphism. So they're like, oh, well, like, I'm not supposed to do that. And ironically, we anthropomorphize, out the wazoo when it's kind of just convenient, I guess, in some ways, right? We dress our little dogs up, put cucumbers on their eyes, put videos on TikToks, and we're like, oh my God, our dog's so spoiled and all this stuff. And at the same time, like, we have this anthropo-denial of like their actual cognitive and emotional depth and, capacity that's just so similar to our own, really. And now that we've got the science to kind of back up, like, yeah, animals are sentient beings, we have to be able to kind of let go of that anthropomorphism. And like you're saying, in terms of the relationship, like, if we want our dogs to listen to us, we have to become someone worth listening to. We have to be like building that social currency so we can make those withdrawals when necessary and ask them to inhibit or, wait or not follow through with their impulses in situations when it wouldn't be appropriate. But we build up that currency because we're doing such a great job having their back and meeting their needs and being like the person who always has the intel, has the plans, keeps them safe. And so it's interesting how much you get for free, actually, when you're building it from currency instead of those just kind of transactions through positive or through reinforcement and punishment, like getting away from the idea that things have to be so transactional. And like you said, building that bond instead.
And that's huge, and such a huge topic there, because I think the question for a lot of people in this generation is like, what is natural dog behavior? Like, we live in a world where we've created the domesticated dog and our lives are their environment. Like, the way that they live with us, we are their natural environment now. So there's a lot of differences of opinion. You guys must both come across this, and you guys have got the States as a whole new country to bring to the table. I've only ever really seen pet dog owner relationships in England, but how do we amalgamate that? How do we teach or come up with like a teaching strategy for people to understand what is normal dog life, like what do dogs need on a basic level that we do or don't meet in terms of their like welfare needs, would you say?
I'm definitely going to default to Kim here. First of all, she's definitely got the best answer and I know where it's going to go. But I would say that it's really hard to have this conversation if the lens hasn't been shifted. First of all, we have to start with the lens shift. That training is not going to get you to where training alone is not going to get you to where you want to go.
And by training, we mean sit down, wait, stay, watch. We're talking traditional obedience training, getting some treats out, asking your dog to perform a set of behaviors for rewards. That's what you mean by training, am I right?
Yeah, it is. It's those small behaviors that we're taught that, when we get a puppy, that's what we should be teaching our dog. And they are transactional. I mean, you could almost think of them in terms of being tricks that a dog can perform for you, but they're very short term. They don't really build you the relationship that you're looking for, or the connection or the cooperation or all of the other pieces that make a good relationship. But so they're good to learn. It's not that they're not good to learn, and I'm not bashing any sorts of training, especially if your dog really likes it. But I think that there's a piece that comes before all of this that would allow the dog even to be able to be trained, in air quotes, like that it's optimizing the dog before they're even learning.
Mm-hmm. And I mean,
Kim,
because I've got a mouthful here, and I'll try to keep it short. But essentially, for me, my whole idea is, hey, we already have the model of the 5 domains of animal welfare that's been around, as an evolution of what were the 5 freedoms, and for all captive animals, this is considered like your staple kind of model that we would follow. And the cognitive dissonance.
Do you want to drop those for us, just for those that don't know absolutely. What those 5 are? What are they?
Yeah. So the 5 domains, the first one is going to be nutrition. The second one is physical environment. And that's more about like comfort or discomfort, not so much what the environment affords. The third one is health and fitness. And the fourth is behavioral interactions, that then branches into behavioral interactions with other people, behavioral interactions with animals, and then behavioral interactions with the environment. And all those things funneling into the 5th domain of the mental or emotional state. So this is something that's applied for, all captive species. But we're like, wait a minute, our dogs are captive? Like, that's the first sticking point. Like, we really are like, what do you mean? Like, he's living the life of Ryan. Like, he doesn't want for anything. He's spoiled rotten. But like, I just finished giving this whole talk on this whole idea, but with the idea that like the easy life is that we think is so great for us and for our dogs is not the same as a good life. Like, a good life has purpose and meaning and we feel valued in our social capacities, our foraging capacities, and our hazard avoidance and management capacities as animals. And like, I know it seems weird to like look at ourselves and look at our dogs like animals, like any other wild species, but we all have these natural suites of behaviors that if we were all in nature would be keeping us alive. And so every species has them. And those behaviors for our dogs, those natural behaviors of who they really are, frankly, in terms of particularly like many of their foraging behaviors are the things that come on our lists of complaints we get from clients as professionals. We want the dog to stop doing all of those really
Get
annoying
out
things.
of my bin. Stop getting in the bin.
Right, which rooting is on our ethogram of natural behaviors that needs to be met for good welfare. And it's funny because I just took 2 videos of my own Great Pyrenees this week, one with her head a foot into a hole in the yard rooting for a mole, which someone would be like, that's a problem. I don't want the dog digging the holes. She could be doing it in my garbage can, which would also not be a fun place for me to be having her rooting. But then she's got a massive toy basket in there that has like 40 different toys and bones, and I'm always throwing them back in different order. And then I got this cute video of her with like her entire front half of her body in the basket, rooting and rummaging around in there. So it's not that rooting is bad. It's that we have to contextually provide for appropriate outlets for all their natural dogness. And we just have never been taught to do it.
I love that. And do you think that's possible? I'm guessing so, because you've built a structure around it. But like, I'm just thinking, I'm going to be a novice dog owner for a minute and just play devil's advocate and be like, okay, so wait, my dog needs to be able to roll in disgusting smells and dig. Like, it needs to be able to dig for me to be giving it its fullness of life. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the fun thing is about the app is that it'll kind of gamify all this for the public, right? So like if you are a dog owner and you don't know what these natural behaviors are, you'll be able to go through and see all these different behaviors and rate the frequency that your dog expresses them or lack of it, and start to shift your own perception of how important they are. And then if you're really finding you don't like where it's showing up, then it's on you and whatever professional team you have around you to develop some creative, other alternate kind of context for that behavior. And that's also something we're asking the industry to do at large, is where, I keep putting out this invitation to say, hey, we need each other. We need you. We need your ideas. If you've come up with this really cool way that you can provide for that behavior, share it with the rest of us. We're all kind of new in this. We've never really thought of ourselves as zookeepers of our dogs, but we are. Like, we really shoulder that same responsibility for meeting their needs. We just have really complex habitats in our human world.
We do. And it's so sad. And I love that there's an app. I really want to pick that apart a little bit more later. Definitely. Can we talk about that more? It just makes me think I've met, back in the day, in the 1970s in England, we had quite a lot of stray dogs. But people also didn't just go and touch them. Like, this was the thing. Because there were strays, you'd have people brought up in a culture where you'd go, you don't touch that dog, you don't know that dog. That was a phrase, that was like an idea that we accepted. Whereas now, I think because dogs are on leads, there's I can come in, I can put my hand on your dog, it's trapped, which is a terrible place to touch a dog when it's restrained anyway and can't escape you. You still don't know that dog, and this concept just seems to have just puffed out of the world. And naturally, we've got more roads, we've got more cars, like our lifestyles have changed dramatically. But I have to say, one of the most beautiful dog owner relationships I've ever seen, when I was living in Wales doing my degree, there was a chap who had a lurcher, and this dog was off lead. It was a beach town, so it was pretty slow moving anyway. And this guy would go into the pub, this lurcher was off lead, and he'd go in, he'd have a drink, and she'd just chill, or she'd walk off for a bit and then come back. She wasn't any trouble to anybody, and she would follow him where he went, and if he asked her to do something, she'd do it. And this wasn't a context where, I think of that now, if I saw an owner doing that now, I'd be like, oh my goodness, you need to have that dog on a lead. Like, what are you doing? There's a road and you can't just let your dog just roam around. But equally, the beauty in this relationship, that this dog was so comfortable in the environment, it wasn't going to walk into a road. This is an old, wise lurcher. It's got autonomy. It's got relational beauty and trust and respect. And it wants to hang out with its person. And it's not causing any problem for anybody. We just don't have that environment for dogs these days. So how on earth can we get, do you think we can get back there? Like, what needs to change for us to improve dog welfare in a culture and a time where we move so quickly? There are so many cars, there are so many roads. What do you think we need to shift here?
I don't think we'll get back to where the dogs are loose, but it's interesting that what you describe is literally like how humans and dogs were as a more normal kind of like model for literally tens of thousands of years. Like where the dogs had autonomy, they came and went, but they had these relationships with people and these partnerships, and were, without needing to be trained, were like voluntarily staying with their people because that was what was in their best interest, and they just had a relationship. I don't think, that we're going to like free the hounds. Like, it's definitely not going to happen in our litigious society here in the US, there's no question. But I think what we have to do is we have to reinvent our homes, our yards, our communities, and our businesses so that the kinds of resources we have available aren't the molds that we've been using. Like here in the US, the traditional dog park does not work. It's not useful. It's a nice idea that really fails most dogs. And so, even things like one-way trails is something that like we've introduced as a possibility here in the US, because so many dogs have problems on leash, crossing paths with other dogs and people and stuff. What would it look like if we had in every community some designated one-way trails so that people could at least know that there's nothing going to be coming the opposite direction, to give a little more peace and quiet to their walking experience. So I think we have to really think outside the box. I don't think we know yet. I think we're at the beginning of asking.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time though, huh?
It's really interesting though, having lived lived in both countries. I think it's really important to highlight how lucky people are in the UK. Without taking a big fat dump on America. That's not absolutely what I want to do. But where I lived in New Jersey, and I know that it's like this where you are, Kim, in North Carolina, that the leash laws are incredibly restrictive. And it is so upsetting because there's so much space. I mean, there's so much land where people could let their dogs be, have a little bit more autonomy. But actually, in the UK, there are so many places where dogs are invited into cafes, restaurants. They're invited to be part of your life. They're allowed to run off leash. On the beach, my beaches all year round, dogs can be off. Parks, it's an expectation. Woods, that dogs will be allowed to be off leash. And from what I've experienced in the 9 months that I've lived here, is that the dogs have more relationship savvy, into people, dog, people, dog, relationship and behavior, I would say, is far superior than what I saw in the States, because dogs always have to meet on leash. And I think it's really fortunate for us, actually, that we do have these outlets. And then having gone to India in January, then you see a next level where there's so much autonomy, but then of course there's like more medical issues and shorter lifespan and, food insecurity and all of that stuff. So the UK actually has a pretty sweet deal, I think, in the spectrum. I was thinking, Kim, about what you were saying. There was a couple of things that popped up earlier about Hannah, when you said, should we just let them roll in the stinky smell? And Kim was like, yes. And I was thinking, would I want my dog to roll in a stinky smell? But I think that with all of those, the diversity of behavior, all those different behaviors that show that a dog is really getting to experience life and can show up as their best selves in the world, which is how I like to kind of picture it. I think that if we're giving dogs a big chunk of those things, if there was a stinky smell and you had to leave for work, you can easily lean into that relationship and be like, not today, bud, sorry.
Yeah.
Like the swimming, I live near the beach. Sometimes the tide is out and I know if he goes in the water, it's smelly and I don't want him to do it. So having that ability to have a relationship where you're with your dog, where the rule isn't so hard and fast. Yes, you always get to swim, or no, you never get to swim. It's like, sorry, today, it's not today.
Yeah,
absolutely. But that's the thing about the compromise. And when you know that you have put all those deposits in the bank account, again, you can make a little withdrawal, be like, no, sorry, like I got to go to work in 10 minutes. And even if you were the person who was like, I just vomit in my mouth every time you do it, that is the one behavior I am not ever going to let you do. Like, you can do all the other things and I will bend over backwards to make sure you can do all the other things. But if I see you start to dive into a smell, I'm intervening, like I'm calling you. So, but again, dogs are amenable to that as long as we're not constantly frustrating the heck out of them by being like, no, you can't do it. And I think that's what it's turned into, even through positive reinforcement. If we're always redirecting to another behavior that is not one of those natural behaviors that provides so much inherent reinforcement of the experience of all that dopamine that they're getting for engaging in their natural behaviors, like we can't compete with that with a little trick we're having the dog do for a cookie. So, we need to really start valuing like the idea, and then we can kind of pick and choose a few things and be like, that one, no, I'm sorry, like I'm drawing a line with that. I don't want you rolling in the goose poo.
God, that smells, and the fox poo, it's so hard to get out. I don't know why fox poo is always the hardest. I actually had human poo once.
Oh, nice.
Oh, it happened to me last month. We had contractors here, and literally one day the dogs come up with a smear all down their neck. And
they pooped in your back garden?
Yes, they pooped in my backyard.
What? That's disgusting.
And I didn't know. Here's what's really horrible, but it's good.
And I don't mean the dogs, the contractors.
No, the contractor, right. No, exactly. So I clean it off, and it took me like a good hour how embedded it was in my long-haired dog's coat, right?
That is great.
And then I find out the next day that it was human poo because the dogs go back to the spot, and I see there's a little piece of toilet paper that's like tucked in the bush, and I was like, are you kidding, right? So in that moment, of course, I'm wishing I never endorsed the idea of rolling in anything with my dogs, and had to make a pretty direct complaint to the contractor.
And that is not going to be in the app. Rolling
in human
poo is not going to be in the app.
That's where we draw the line. That's the line. It's human poo. Like fox poo, maybe sometimes once
but
a
no
month.
human. And spaniel ears are like a sponge. It was a spaniel, and he got the whole way home because it was underneath his ear, and I didn't know. I was going to work, so I had to carry him into my apartment, give him a full bath, and I knew from one whiff of it, I was like, I know what this is, and it was so about throw up in my mouth. Yeah, that was disgusting.
And like we laugh because it's gross, but also there are some things. Some of this is about teaching people what is and what is not normal, right? So some people might be like, what about dogs eating poo? But I would say, as a behaviorist, that's actually not normal behavior. Like that's a dog who has an issue that we need to maybe address. That's a nutritional deficiency or a medical problem. And that's hard, right? Because actually the first step, it feels like we need to cover here is, how do we teach people what is normal dog behavior? Like what is you mentioned in your bio, Kim, that you're an ethologist. Maybe this is a good time to go, what does that mean? What is ethology? What is the study of ethology for dogs?
So I'm an applied ethologist, so I'll qualify that too. So ethology, or being an ethologist, so that's the study of animal behavior in their natural environment. And applied ethology is, so what happens when we interrupt that natural environment through captivity, domestication, artificial selection? Basically, when humans get in there and they meddle with, evolution and nature as it exists with its own rules, unencumbered by human influence, like it changes everything and it disrupts the natural order of things as soon as we get in there, we start manipulating all the pieces. So applied ethology specifically looks at that dysfunction that occurs and then looks at opportunities for mediating it by, trying to get the best net welfare for the animal in that case, because it's always a cost, right? As soon as we've interrupted nature's systems, it's always a cost to that individual's welfare. So we're just doing the best we can with those moving parts, but coming at it from the lens of really appreciating like how evolution works, what ethology is really all about in terms of again, those natural behaviors for foraging, so finding the things that you need in nature, the natural social and reproductive behaviors you would have, the natural ways that you would manage or avoid hazards in your environment. Like they're distinct to each species, and then they get qualified for each individual depending on, their age and their own learning experience, their own environmental conditions, all of those other factors of the legs. So yeah, I think as we're looking at all these like natural dog behaviors, I think sometimes we get a pop culture idea of normal dog behavior. And that's definitely what I feel like has happened in the industry in my career, is people are like, dogs need to run and play and fetch and, go for walks. But it's like, well, that's not actually like ethologically relevant natural behaviors. And so it's complicated with dogs because of artificial selection, because we bred them to do all these really distinct things as behavioral specialists that now we don't want them to do anymore. But so through artificial selection, we really have kind of curated their needs accidentally by selecting for what behaviors we wanted to show up. But again, now in the 21st century, we're all kind of in some interesting Pollyanna denial about like, well, they're just all pets though. It's like, not really though. Like, this doesn't mean they can't be, but it means that like you have to understand what you're signing up for when you get a certain kind of dog, and then make sure that you're prepared to meet those distinct needs based on what humans have kind of done historically to turn them into that animal they are. It's messy. Applied ethology is messy.
It's huge, especially with domesticated dogs. Go on.
And I was just going to say, and we dog trainers have also, like as a community, kind of perpetrated that myth that all dogs are the same and all dogs can be trained to do all the things. And it's a really unfair place to start. It's not the blank canvas thing. It's not. Right. And that myth has been around for a really long time, and a lot of people really do believe it. I just had somebody come to my house, actually, a contractor, to give me an estimate, and he was saying, "Oh, it's all in how you raise them." And I was like, "Oh, shall I get into that with him right now?" And then I thought, no, probably not. But I mean, that's still floating around. It's like it is really a very well kind of considered theory that is the truth, and it does the dogs a disservice, and it also has the human that's living with them on the hook for something that is almost impossible for them to be able to work through. In some cases.
And what's way too much pressure on everybody.
And what for you, Justine? I know that you have an amazing product called the dial method that you've been honing. This is your like knowledge child, you might say, that you've birthed recently that is going to solve a problem. That's right?
I just like knowledge child. I did feel like a birth. And
that's it. That's what we do. We birth little projects, babies. Anyway, but it's an amazing piece of work. I've had a little dip into the dial method. So what for you, Justine, are the things that are missing, that most people miss, that really need to be taught before we go anywhere near training the dog, would you say?
Well, it's funny. I mean, that's how the whole program came about, because after I met Kim and my world exploded, I was so happy to have met her and so pleased that this was all a thing and not just a feeling. And then I went back and I was like, oh, crap, now I've got to redo all my programs to reflect like this thing that I'm feeling. And everything that I wanted to say, I realized was aimed at the humans and not at training the dog. And I didn't kind of know that as I was building it, but as I was building it, that became very, very apparent. And so it's basically divided into 4 sections, so that it's really easy to remember. But the first one is see your dog. That was my, obviously my what if response, is really knowing who your dog is, who dogs are as a whole, and then who your individual unique personality of your dog, who are they, can you see them, and do you accept who they are? Because that's another thing. You can live with a dog and be in denial for a very long time that they are who they are. And then the second piece is to parent your dog. And that really is, what does this dog need from me, the human? What are they looking for? What are they relying on me to get right? And that is obviously meeting their needs, being clear, consistent, and kind, really important. And to support them rather than telling them off for doing things that they're doing wrong, in air quotes, helping them through situations that are really difficult in a way that we would help a child. We wouldn't be telling kids off all the time. We'd be like, right, you're struggling, let me help you, let me assist you, let me change the environment, like give you more skills, whatever the thing is, but see them for their struggle. The third one is teaching the crew. So teach your crew, which is just educating the people in the dog's inner circle to allow the dog to have some agency, and to be able to do some of the things that they would like to do rather than just what they're being told to do, and to advocate for them. I think that's really important, and to make sure that the people around them are being safe as well and respectful to the dogs. I think there's something like you're going in and touching the dog on the head when they're on a lead, really commonplace behaviors for humans to do. And I would just love that to be more widespread knowledge that that's really hard for some dogs to deal with. And then the very last piece is pulling it all together, creating a plan. So what does the human need to do to help this dog show up as the best, version of themselves in this world? And really simple ways that you can do that, like learn when you really need to be on with your dog, and when you need to really be paying attention and guiding them through the world, and when you are exhausted and you just want to switch off and you're like, I can't do this right now. Mm-hmm. I've got a paper to finish, I've got a house to clean, I've got a party to prep for, whatever the thing is, the dog's just going to have to move to one side and I need to be like, press the off switch. And being proactive, obviously, in your planning. And then the very last piece of it, which I love, which was inspired by Kim, is patterning. So basically, instead of teaching, we talked a little bit earlier about teaching individual commands or cues, whatever word you want to call them, sit, down, stay. They only get you so far. But if you can create a pattern for, in fact, Kim and I were just chatting about this earlier, because we both love it. If you have like... a time of day, let's say I'm sitting here right now, I'm at my desk, I'm working. I like to, with my clients, say, right, if the human is doing this, what is the dog doing? So that these are like blocks of time or activity blocks. So we've got massive clarity on what we the people are doing, but we're also going to help the dog to be able to understand what they're doing. And then it's so easy for them. And then they can hold that, behavior. I don't even want to call it that because it's not a behavior, but they understand the context. Mm-hmm. And then they start to preempt what's happening. So they can see she's going in the office. I know what this means. It's nap time.
We call those context cues, don't we, in training?
Exactly.
Smart, just like, actually, this is... And that must be... I always say to owners of spaniels, often it's spaniel owners, Justin, you get it, we're both spaniel owners, that like they butler, don't they? They're like, do you need help? Anything, yes. Or can I do help, whatever you need, I'm here for it. And the amount of owners that are like, I just can't leave him on his own, because I'm like, no, you absolutely need to, because he won't stop butlering unless you give him some space, or unless you teach him those context cues, just as you say, oh, look, she's sitting at the computer, she's doing the computer stuff. I know this isn't an environment I'm going to get reinforced in. I'm just going to go lie down on my mat, and actually we can go, oh, that actually really works for me to give you brief moments of attention and shape and build that behavior into, really good choice. That actually made me stop doing this to come and talk to you and say, well done. That is
such a good example. Cool. Like of one of those things that is just a common misunderstanding. Like we've had this entire pet dog training industry built around commands. And now that we're understanding more about like how the brain is actually paying way more attention to the context cues, right? Like that actually Melanie Udi was just presenting at a conference this last week that I was at, and she was talking about this in her talk. She's like, the dog is primarily, their brain is noticing all these context cues that's telling them how to respond. And then often our commands are just contradicting that. And so their context cues are going to trump whatever those commands are, or that might be why we have to keep escalating our punishments or rewards to compete with it. Mm-hmm. But instead, if we build context patterns of what you should be doing in those situations, those habits hold behavior in place. Just like we mindlessly get in our car and we know how to start it without being like, how does my car start? Like every time we get in it, you know, like we just do it. We just go through the motions because that's just what we do when we get in the car.
And technical training is really, it's not easy. Like, from many years of working with families who are stretched really, really thin, try teaching a dog a 30-minute downstay at a dining table when kids are dropping food on the floor.
Yeah, hard.
It's not easy, and they don't have the patience, the time, or, to be like fair to them, the skill to be able to do it, because they're not interested at the same level that maybe we are, because we're just all dog nerdies that would, maybe like the challenge
counting
of
behavior. He did 5 seconds. He did 20 seconds. Look at that. Yeah,
exactly. So they don't have time. So it's actually beneficial for the dog because the context is going to trump the behavior cue, right? And it's also beneficial for the humans because it's lazy. It's good lazy.
It's
really
pushing
smart,
the easy
proactive
button.
lazy. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a win for everybody, I think.
I love it.
Yeah.
And
I think the dominion thing maybe is partly what it like lured our ego for some time. Like, look at what I can get the dog to do. Like, I was just telling someone yesterday about like our off-duty hack for when people come to the front door. And I was like, I spent the first half of my career feeling like it was cheating to do it the easy way, to get the dog away from the front door behind a baby gate with a bone, because you're supposed to prove that you can get the dog under control with your stay. And then at a certain point, you're like, why am I doing this the hard way? Especially for my clients. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, just close the door. Just close the door and then teach them how to greet when you get into the house. I know, it is crazy. Why do we do that? We make our lives so much more difficult.
And so much drama as well. Like, there's drama already by the front doorbell, or the doorbell going out the front door.
Yeah.
We're just making it so much more amplified for the dog, aren't we? It's just,
now do a really difficult thing, which is sit still and wait while I go and answer the door, talk to somebody. And I've taught it, I've trained it 1,000 times. I don't know how. Mostly because the client's like, no way. And for me, that's worth it. Like, the owner's going, my dog's actually listening to me in a difficult situation. I'm like, yeah, we'll do this a couple times and then you'll never use it again because maintaining it is just tiring. But your dog will listen to you in this crazy circumstance. Isn't that amazing? Wow.
Not to mention how not fun it is for your visitor, who you're like trying to multitask, training your dog and putting them back in the downstage. Just don't make direct eye contact. It'll be fine.
Just stand outside. I'm going to shut the door on you a couple of times and then I'll let you in. Is that okay?
I know we haven't seen each other for a year, but just hang on a second. I've got some dog training to do, and then I'll give you a hug.
Yeah. It's crazy. The things that we do as dog trainers are pretty crazy. Like, someone should just do a show on the stupid things that dog trainers do. Like, what? You're actually practicing this? That's amazing. And Justine, it sounded like a lot, and it is a huge amount that you've packed into that concept with the dial method. But it doesn't take very long to watch. Am I right? It's a short.
No, it's only 40 minutes, and each section is just 10-minute sections. And then basically at the end of it, it's all condensed down into something you can print out and stick on your fridge. Amazing. So then you can use it like, I'm always trying to figure out the easiest way to describe it, because there's a lot, obviously there is a lot packed into it, but it's kind of like a compass that you can put it on your fridge, and you can use it, look at the outer ring and be like, wait, what is actually happening here? What am I not doing? Because guaranteed you're not doing one of the things, or you need to focus your attention on one of the pieces to change what's going on in that situation. So yeah, it's a bit of a handy dandy, stick it in your pocket.
Amazing. And it's throughout. It's not a, one and done, I'm going to learn this and then I've absorbed it. It's actually an active tool that you can keep using that will help you to, I guess, navigate why the dog is doing what it's doing and what your options are to support the dog.
Yeah, exactly. And from puppy all the way to like the seniors, because they're just like humans. They go through these changes, like the different stages of their life, they show up really differently. Mm-hmm. And so you can go back in like a compass, check in and be like, where does this point to that I'm falling a little bit short? And then dive in there. And then right in the middle, actually, I didn't say this, right in the middle of the circle is the dog skills section. And the idea is if we've done all the stuff that we're supposed to do on our side of the street, then actually we don't need to teach the dog a ton of stuff. We really don't. We can use some basic skills to help them get through life, but we're really leaning into the relationship, because there should be a lot of safety and trust there. Mm-hmm. And by making sure that we're big time meeting their needs, really there's a lot going on for the dog that already is checking most of their boxes.
I love that. It sounds a lot like the way I used to teach fetch or drop. People are like, I need him to drop the thing. And I'm like, no, you need to teach him that you share. You don't steal things. Like that's just a different lesson. It's the same thing, but it's like, actually, I'm not going to try and take your stuff. And that's what I want you to understand, dog, is that I'm not here to just take your stuff. I'm not a thief. I'll swap and I'll like for like. And if you've got something really valuable and you really don't want me to have it and we're going to argue about it, then I will use distraction to see if I can get that off in a different way. But the most important thing is the relationship there with the dog is protected and maintained. So I think this is an amazing place for us to maybe pause on this part 1. Hopefully you guys will come back for a part 2, because what I would love to learn more about is Kim, tell us a lot more about this app that is coming out. I'd love to hear about that. Justine, we're doing some really interesting stuff right now in Parliament, and looking at responsible dog ownership and education there. So maybe we could unpack that in a part 2. But just on behalf of everybody who's been an audience member for the Future of Dogs, thank you so much, wise and wonderful women, for bringing your knowledge and education into this space. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in part 2.
And that's all for another episode of The Future of Dogs. Big thanks to our sponsor, Amplified Behaviour. Your host and producer is Hannah Malloy. Technical direction, audio and video producer is Mark Goslett. And the graphic designer is James Whipps.